for 2 months and been sick.
Been hard enough these last 3 days for the children of Louise Hicks, but it got much worse after an unidentified woman walked straight into Sunset Memorial Home and stole their mother's wedding ring right off her hand.
We were heartbroken enough losing my mom, but then it killed us, made it worse.
The video captured by Sunset Funeral Home security cameras shows this woman leaning into the casket and forcefully pulling Louise Hicks' ring off of her finger. The funeral home says this is a bizarre act.
They've never had nothing like that happen before.
The woman in the surveillance camera left Hicks' hand like this.
Her ring was off of her finger and it was just had been yanked and pulled on, and it was really red and it broke her skin.
Hicks' daughters are still in shock and can't believe anyone would steal from another person, much less someone who can't protect themselves.
There's no one to protect her there.
The jewelry is nothing compared to what she's done, to Mother and our family.
The family says the ring wasn't just jewelry. It represented her unity with her late husband, who passed away 4 years ago. Hicks' daughter told us she is ready to be reunited with her love, and the ring represented just that.
Tonight, pressure is building on the Obama administration to release information about the 9/11 attacks that has been kept from the public well over a decade.
I don't know how the Saudi government will react to it, but I think it's just information.
New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand has read the 28 pages that have been locked in a vault under the Capitol for 13 years. She says the 9/11 families she represents deserve to read them too before the president travels to the Middle East next week.
If the president is going to meet with the Saudi Arabian leadership and the royal family, they think it would be appropriate that this document be released before the president make that trip, so that they can talk about whatever issues are in that document.
Steve Kroft interviewed former Senator Bob Graham, who co-chaired the Joint Congressional Inquiry. He says the classified pages lay out a network of people he believes helped some of the hijackers find housing and enroll in flight school.
You believe that support came from Saudi Arabia?
Substantially.
And when we say the Saudis, you mean the government, rich people in the country, charities?
All of the above.
Graham and the report's other authors say the Bush administration insisted the 28 pages be classified for national security reasons that are still unclear. A review by the Obama White House has dragged on for years. Press Secretary Josh Earnest.
I can tell you that the president certainly does support being as transparent as possible, but he also believes that that these national security officials have an important job to do.
Gillibrand, Rand Paul, and other senators have introduced legislation that would require declassification within 60 days. Those secret pages could serve as key evidence in a lawsuit 9/11 victims' families have filed against Saudi Arabia.
Genetically modified salmon, ready for the U.S. market, is one of the latest GM products, an industry that was commercialized just 20 years ago. According to a global nonprofit organization for agri-biotech applications, the ISA, the people around the world planted nearly 180 million hectares of biotech crops in 2015, up 100-fold since 1996.
The West is still leading in both R&D and applications. The East and developing countries are catching up very fast. The potential for us to use biotechnology in corn. As you know, we don't have any biotech corn at the moment growing in China. And the potential to increase yield significantly by addressing environmental concerns, pest concerns, the potential is very high.
So far, China only allows people to plant GM cotton and papayas, but it does import a number of GM products, including soybeans, a major source of cooking oil. The central government is beefing up research and its commercialization process for GM crops like cotton and corn.
China is a big agricultural country, and it must have used GM technology. Our policy has been constant and clear. We'll stick to self-innovation, ensure safety, and manage the industry carefully.
China requires all food products that contain GM crops to be labeled clearly, but consumers still have concerns.
I won't buy GM food for me or my family because I think it may be bad for our health.
I think it's not safe. If you tell me this is GM food, I won't eat it.
Some biotech experts are urging the public to be more reasonable towards GM food.
I fully understand the public's concern about any new technology, but people should also learn the scientific facts behind the products and think more reasonably.
It's been 20 years since GM food appeared. On the one hand, more GM food is coming to the market. On the other hand, the Chinese public has been constantly questioning its safety. In the short term, this issue doesn't have an easy answer.
Digital Universe, all the data contained in our computer files is expected to hit 44 trillion gigabytes by 2020. How to store all these data is a burning question. Luckily, researchers at my alma mater, University of Washington, and Microsoft have found a way. They can shrink the space needed to store digital data that today would fill a Walmart supercenter down to the size of a sugar cube. The digital data, pictures, videos, documents, is chopped into pieces. It's then stored by synthesizing a massive number of tiny DNA molecules. The data can be dehydrated or otherwise preserved for hundreds or thousands of years. Researchers say the biggest barrier to viable DNA storage is the cost and efficiency, but all it takes are the right incentives.
We've been telling you about lawmakers in state after state passing bills to protect people who cite religious beliefs for refusing to serve or employ gay or transgender people. We wondered why so many of these laws, including some that limit access to public restrooms, are surfacing right now.
At this time, being trans is not a crime.
Demonstrators against the so-called bathroom bills were out in force in South Carolina, their chants echoing those in other states where they say legislatures have enacted laws enabling bigotry.
Shame, shame.
But while they protested, the conservative group that's helped author many of those measures protecting religion over sexual orientation was working at its Orlando area office on new ways to uphold what it says is really at stake.
It's only about being free to pursue your faith. We have no interest in discriminating against anyone.
Matthew Stavers, the founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, which has affiliated attorneys in 50 states, drafting bills, advising lawmakers, and defending clients in what they believe to be the great cultural clash of our time.
You are a strong people!
We first met Staver when he defended Kentucky County Clerk Kim Davis, who said it was against her religion to hand out marriage licenses to same-sex couples. Lately, Liberty Counsel has been helping to draft legislation for conservative lawmakers in at least 20 states.
There's certainly a thread of information that is similar and the same. They all have the same intent, and that is to protect religious freedom.
But opponents say Liberty's handiwork actually protects those who, for religious reasons, decline to employ or serve gays, lesbians, or transgender people. Their bills began cropping up in state legislatures soon after the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage last year.
An objective observer could conclude that you want to push back against that ruling.
Well, I certainly want to push back against the ruling. It was a wrong ruling. It has no basis in the Constitution.
And he is unfazed by corporate threats to pull out of states in protest against his work.
Money talks, right?
They're not going to follow through.
So it's a bluff?
It's a bluff. They're not leaving.
But now comes word that Ringo Starr is the latest entertainer to cancel a concert in North Carolina in protest. Scott, the Beatles' old drummer said he's sorry to disappoint his fans, but, quote, "We need to take a stand against this hatred."
It's conscription day. If there aren't enough volunteers to join the military, there's a compulsory lottery. Family members wait, as nervous as their sons. Some jeering, hoping someone else's son is picked. Not everyone wants to join the military. Others say they don't even belong here. Born male, they now identify as women. All men over the age of 21 have to go through this compulsory conscription process. Women can apply to be in the military by taking an exam, leaving transgender people in limbo. Conscription law applies to a person's gender at birth, not their personal gender identity. 23-year-old Kasika Tepitak has been taking hormones to become a woman for 4 years.
People look at me in like stare at me, but I just get used to it.
In this sea of faces, a few stand out. Kasika is not alone.
ปกติแล้วตอนแรก
I was going to run away and leave the country, but my father said I have to face up to my responsibilities.
There's some violence that happened in the camp or something like that, and it made me like little scared.
Those born men that became women used to be conscripted regardless, facing abuse in the army. Transgender women used to be labelled severely and permanently insane or psychos by the military, but are now considered to have gender identity disorder.
Transgender people used to be forced to take off their shirts, even if they had breast implants. But we've been working with the military to create understanding about how to treat us with dignity.
Transgender women don't have to serve in the military anymore, but they still have to go through this process. The Thai Transgender Alliance has released a video explaining the conscription process for the trans community to try to make it easier. They've also been working closely with the military. The military wasn't available for an interview, but it has developed guidelines for soldiers to become more sensitive towards transgender people. And treatment has improved.
The staff or the soldier, they treat me well, give me information. For 2 years ago, they didn't offer me a chair, but this year they did.
But
I'm a woman and I shouldn't be here.
In early February 2016, 2 young women walked into Dikwa displacement camp without raising suspicion. Hours later, they blew themselves up, killing 58 people and wounding 48 others. The third suspect surrendered to police. In 2014, 26 suicide attacks were recorded, compared to 27 attacks as of May 2015. The United Nations Children's Fund estimates that at least 3/4 of these attacks were carried out by women and children. Since July 2014, 9 suicide incidents involving children aged between 7 and 17 have been reported. This is based on eyewitness accounts. Jean Go, UNICEF's representative in Nigeria, says women and children suicide bombers are victims and not perpetrators. Unless they're protected, they're at risk of retaliation by community members, hindering reintegration once rescued. UNICEF estimates 743,000 children have been uprooted by the conflict in the 3 most affected states in Nigeria. The number of unaccompanied and separated children could be as high as 10,000.
33-year-old Andres Alegría can now get married to his male partner of 4 years in Colombia if they decide they want to take that step.
To be able to choose what you want to do with your life or what life goal you want to embark on with your partner is a minimum right we should have as a human being. And that right should be assured by the courts and by congressmen.
Last week, Colombia's Constitutional Court voted 6-3 against a proposed ruling that declared marriage was between a man and a woman and that it was up to Congress to decide the issue. Currently, same-sex partners are allowed to form civil unions that provide health, pension, and inheritance benefits. Yet, the symbolic right to wed has been denied. After the ruling, some of Colombia's marriage equality activists celebrated at the footsteps of the highest court's Palace of Justice. But some conservative groups argue this isn't legal. One group says after 19 rejected bills in Congress on the issue, the court ruling cannot be above the law.
The Republic's Congress always said no, and that decision has to be respected because it is a legislative decision by Congress and needs to be respected as such.
The court decision also ruled that notaries who refuse to marry same-sex couples will be violating constitutional rights. Gay rights activists say this is a big step, similar to last year's ruling that lifted restrictions on same-sex couples adopting children. But some admit there will still be opposition.
We still have to make sure that this equality recognized by law becomes an equality that is recognized by society, so that every time we get married or every time we adopt, We don't have to have a civil suit to defend our rights.
Panicked are buying up underground bunkers and/or fleeing to parts unknown, as all indications point towards a collapse that will, in the words of economist Peter Schiff, be the earthquake that follows the 2008 tremor. The Chicago Tribune reported that about 3,000 individuals with net assets of $1 million or more left Chicago in the last year alone due to the exploding climate of unrest growing in the Union stockyards. The writing is on the wall. President Obama, in concert with his puppet master George Soros, have been turning up the heat on deteriorating conditions resulting from the United States and the EU's strategic collapse of the global economy for the last 7 years.
So if somebody wants to build a coal-powered plant, they can. It's just that it will bankrupt them because they're going to be charged a huge sum for all that greenhouse gas that's being emitted.
Before Obama ever came around, coal was doing good. Obama killed it.
We have citizens digging through the trash just to eat.
I wished he'd just step off the face of the earth. It wouldn't hurt my feelings none.
What's actually hurt coal is not any EPA rules as much as it is really cheap natural gas that has come from fracking.
Whoa. The Wall Street Journal reports that the largest coal company in the United States has filed for bankruptcy, an event that will result in energy costs that will sharply rise on the American middle class like they have on the common people of Germany. Germany's energy policies have gradually doubled the average industrial cost per kilowatt hour as clean and renewable energy can't carry the load, literally. Last week, Obama began pushing for housing lenders to offer home loans to people with bad credit. What better way to push the economy over the edge than to repeat the same 2008 nightmare?
We're using data on housing and neighborhood conditions to help cities identify the areas that need the most help.
By 2014, investors had already begun to notice another government-fed subprime housing bubble on the horizon. Investors Business Daily wrote in January of 2014, what stoked housing inflation was federal housing policies designed to boost home ownership among low-income and minority borrowers. Between 2011 and the third quarter of 2013, housing prices rose nearly 6%. Triple the increase in rental costs. Both this bubble and the last one were caused by the government's housing policies. Low down payments, a mere 5% at Fannie and Freddie, and just 3.5% at the FHA are fueling the bubble. But new qualified mortgage rules don't require a minimum down payment for borrowers in 2014. The country has been misled about financial reform. InfoWars has called for Obama's impeachment on numerous occasions, to no avail. His supposed lame duck presidency heading into the end of his term has been tremendously underestimated. Americans are nothing less than under a full New World Order attack, aided and abetted by the executive branch of the United States of America.